Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 8:01. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 meeting of the Town of Forest Heights. This meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Noble. Councilmember Hines.
Present.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Brownson.
Here.
Councilmember Little.
Present.
Council President McDonald.
Present.
Mayor Lily.
Present.
Motion, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, prior to this open meeting, the council went into a closed session meeting. That closed session began at 6:35, and the meeting was closed under Government Article Section 10-508. That's under the subsection 3-305. And the reason was to discuss two items. One was the appointment of a town administrator. That's reason one, which is the appointment of a town administrator. And reason two was to consult with legal counsel to obtain advice. And the council met with counsel to talk about a recent matter of litigation. The members that voted to go into closed session for that session were Council Member Brownson, Council Member Hines, Council President McDonald, Council Member Little, myself, Mayor Lilly. People that attended that session would be Council Member Noble, Council Member Little, Council Member Kennedy, Council President McDonald, Council Member Hines, and Council Member Brownson and myself. Also, that was our interim town administrator and chief of police, Anthony Reese, Mr. Kevin Best, town attorney, our town clerk, Sherlita Hawkins, and Mr. Reginald Bagley. There were no actions taken during that meeting, and that closed session concluded at 7:26 p.m. All right, next we will have approval of the agenda. I move that we adopt the agenda for tonight.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt tonight's agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, this evening, I'm proud to introduce Mr. Marley Cashwell. He is a resident of the town of Forest Heights. He is a student at Oxon Hill High School, and he is our first youth ambassador as part of the Youth Ambassador Pilot Program. We approve the agenda. So we approve the minutes. Yes. And so we have Mr. Marley Cashwell, who was our first youth ambassador as part of the pilot program that begins this month. Mr. Cashwell, would you please come forward? Thank you for being here, Mr. Cashwell. Just one moment, he's going to turn your mic. All right, thank you for being here, Mr. Cashwell.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
So, as the youth ambassador, could you tell us what you hope to get or to contribute to the town as part of your pilot program that runs to the end of the year?
As a part of this program, the main thing I want to do is work alongside Mayor Lilly and be a voice for those around my age, which is the teen group in Forest Heights, to make a positive impact.
Very good. Mr. Cashwell, could you tell us what year are you in high school?
I'm in my freshman year, class of 2027 for Oxon Hill High School.
What are some of the extracurricular activities that you're involved in at this time?
I play football. I also play baseball. I run track. I'm in the science tech program, and I also am in the mock trial team.
The mock trial team. Could you give us an idea of how well you're performing in school right now?
Right now, I have a 3.9 GPA. I made honor roll. The assembly is this Friday. In sports as well, I'm doing very good. And yeah, that's it.
Miss Cashwell, Marley's mother is also here, and we've met already to go over the program requirements of a youth ambassador. They've accepted the requirements, and they're also looking forward to the benefits as part of Mr. Cashwell's participation in the program. He'll meet monthly with myself, but he'll also be at some of the town events to serve with the council and to provide ideas in the future that council could consider that will impact folks that are youth, but also the community as a whole. So at this time, the council have any questions for Mr. Cashwell? Sure, Councilmember Noble.
Thank you. How long have you been in the town?
I've been living here since 2020.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Cashwell, welcome to the town of Forest Heights. We appreciate you being willing to take on this opportunity. We're looking forward to some of your ideas and representing your peers well and helping us to shape the future of Forest Heights.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Next, we'll have public period. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak at this time during public period? Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak during public period at this time? Okay, well, hearing none, public period is now closed. Next, we'll move into legislation. Councilmember Bronson.
I have a question. I wasn't aware that when we approved the agenda that we were approving all things on the agenda. So I had some questions about
Well,
the,
Councilmember Bronson, that's what approval of the agenda means.
but it doesn't mean approving everything on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Then why do we go line by line for resolutions?
Okay, Councilmember Bronson, we have approved the agenda for tonight. We'll discuss legislation. So
I have some comments about the minutes and I don't want to
Well,
approve the
you're
agenda.
not gonna be able to make them at this time.
So when can I make them?
You're not gonna be able to make the comments at this time about the.
When will I
You've
be
already
able to-
Approve the minutes.
When will I be able to make my comments about the minutes?
We've moved on from that item. We've adopted the agenda for tonight.
So I rescind my vote for adopting the agenda.
Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please notate?
And I do know that there are errors in the agenda that need to be brought, in the minutes that need to be brought out. So if you want to ignore the errors, let the record show that.
Well, Mr. Best, as an expert parliamentarian, could you share with us?
Well, I'm not trained as a parliamentarian, but any lawyer knows quite a bit about parliamentary procedure, particularly if you're a municipal attorney. And the councilwoman is correct, Mr. Mayor. When you approve an agenda and it lists a number of minutes, those minutes have to be approved individually.
Okay,
Typically, approval agenda, simply because the contents include minutes, doesn't mean that it divests the council of reviewing the minutes and proposing changes, that sort of thing. Just a point of correction.
just a moment, just a moment.
Just a
So-
point of correction then.
So if there's multiple minutes, but if we have one set of minutes, it applies in that case as well?
I think what you're talking about is consent agenda. I don't see anything listed as a consent agenda. A consent agenda is when you put multiple items on the consent agenda and that one motion in one
Okay.
fell swoop, a motion will approve all the items on the agenda. And then certain items can be pulled off the consent agenda and handled individually. But I don't see any consent agenda listed.
Okay,
In other words, the agenda wasn't adopted as a consent agenda per se.
well, I stand corrected. Thank you, Mr. Best.
Sure.
Councilmember Brownson, I stand corrected. So with that being stated, I move that we amend the agenda by revisiting the minutes from April 1st, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved in second that we amend the agenda, revisiting the minutes from April 1st, 2024. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, now we will look at the minutes from April 2024. And council member, just one moment. I assume that you would like to make an amendment to the minutes.
I have some correction for the minutes. Well, first of all, the minutes does not, the corrected, I have two copies. The one that she put on the table doesn't have who had attended the meeting. But the ones we gave earlier show that there was present Councilwoman McDonald and Councilwoman Little. And that wasn't correct. But in the second version, she took out the attendees altogether. My name is misspelled. It had under resolution 1524, my name is misspelled. In several places in the minutes. And it's, that's on page, well, it's not page numbers, so
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. Maybe I propose that we strike the minutes from this month, that we will have the corrections made and we'll adopt them at a later meeting.
okay, so when do we get a chance to show our, put in our correction, what we think it should be corrected?
Well, let's call out those items. If we could get a list of the items.
Okay, and well, you know, I know my name is misspelled throughout the minutes. Chief Reese's name is misspelled throughout the minutes. On the resolution 1324, under the discussion, it has this note would allow the orders to be closed out before the end of fiscal year 2024. And I thought we said calendar year 2024.
We said fiscal year. That was,
All the orders gonna be done before fiscal year
that
2024,
was the discussion we had, yes. That's the discussion we've been having, yes.
which is June.
Yes.
Okay.
So your name is spelled Chief Reese.
Yes, in one of these legislations. I marked this. Under the one for. There's no page number, so it's hard to follow, but. The one for. Under the council's. When we were voting on the motion to approve the Harborside luncheon. It has 5 yes and no and 0 no. I abstained in that. I didn't vote for that. I got to go back to the page numbers. Resolution 2024, no, maybe 2124.
Okay, President, it's 2124.
So if they can just make a global change with the name changes, those are my comments for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. So name change, names, misspellings, and the vote count on resolution 2124.
And I need to put who attended the meeting. That's not included in this second version that she gave us.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, if there are no further changes, I move that we amend. Oh, Councilmember Noble.
On this correction on the word, would be in the fifth whereas, it should be strike instead of TR.
I see it's resolution
10,400.
21-24.
And then I thought it was somewhere where it just says CM and not the council person's name. That's a question about the recording of the minutes. How long do we retain them? Because the meetings are recorded, right?
Yes, for a year.
Well, how long? For a year. 1 year?
But these minutes were formed out.
I'm sorry, what?
It's okay. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Okay, so we have added S to strike under resolution 21-24. I see where that is, under the whereas, with whereas. Okay, are there any further items, errors that were notated? If none, we'll also do a cursory check. And we will try to find any other areas we haven't determined now, and we'll bring the minutes back at a later time. So I move that we amend the agenda for tonight, striking the minutes from April 1st, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we amend the agenda, striking minutes from April 1st, 2024. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, next we will move into legislation. First, we have resolution 15-24. And this is a resolution to repeal and revise the town's retirement policy and generally relating to employee pensions and benefits. It's introduced by myself, Mayor Lilly. And are we needing to vote on this tonight? All right, I move that we adopt resolution 15-24.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 15-24. Discussion. Mr. O'Connor, are there any pertinent updates about this resolution timelines or other information council should be aware of?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Noel.
Yes, my question is it says pensions and benefits. Are we just talking about retirement?
Yes, council member, this resolution is specific to the 457.
And the other part of that, have all the employees been notified that this change is coming about?
Yes.
And there's also a meeting that we scheduled to go through the process of switching over and collecting the vote and those other formalities.
Mayor, there is a tentative meeting to meet with everyone for that Chief Reese has scheduled.
I believe for April 22nd.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilmember Bronson.
So let me understand this. This is just taking the town's portion of the 457 away, but the employee can continue to contribute to the 457.
Yes, council member.
Yes, it's authorization for us to get to, obviously, to authorization for me to get to new plan, so we can do a employee contributed only.
So I have another comment. I was on the legislative update yesterday, and it said that the state plan deadlines were extended. Do you know anything about that? They were going to be January, but they were extended. So do we still have the same deadline that you said we had before?
We should stay on that same deadline for the audits. It has been extended, but we're already on track for the one plan, so I wouldn't see any extensions coming that we would need to participate in.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. Councilmember Hines?
My question is, talking to all the employees, they're on board with this?
I can speak to that, Councilwoman. That will be a yes. Because it's moving and in a next step to get the Maryland State retirement, they understand that this is one of the steps, and they are willing to do that. That's going to be explained to them on the 22nd as well.
Okay, one more. The way I'm understanding, they don't see anything for 3 years? Is that what I'm understanding? It won't be a turnaround? Am I saying it right?
No, it's not that long.
It's actually going to be a lot faster than that. Since the town is taking action on this now, we're going to fall into a more current cycle. So it could be about 1 fiscal year, 2 at the most, based on once we get everything in. So it would not be 3 years. But it is retroactively applied. So they might not see it for those 2 years, but as soon as everything is signed off on, it's as if the date that it's approved by the council is when it happens.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Councilmember Noble?
Question, how will this affect the funding needed for the prior retirement? Because we need to catch up on that, right?
So the Mr. Frankenfield, the chief, myself, we've already worked on that. Mr. Frankenfield is reconciling everything that needs to happen for the prior funding. That is going to be separate from what we are doing now, and that's why this resolution actually says contributions will continue till FY25. So Mr. Frankenfield can go ahead and reconcile everything, get everything into the accounts that's supposed to be there, withdraw everything that shouldn't be there, and make everything whole. So there should be little to no impact to the employees.
Thank you, Councilmember Noble. Councilmember Kennedy? I'm sorry, Councilmember Little, didn't see, my apologies.
Do you all believe that adopting this state plan will help with the retention of employees?
I think the chief and I can both speak to that. Absolutely. When you have a plan that's in place for something like this, it gives a light at the end of the tunnel for the employee, something to work towards, build to. And it has been proven that when employees have something that they can vest into, they tend to stay at that employer longer. Beyond the retention, the cost of training new employees is very expensive. So there's going to, and especially law enforcement officers, there's going to be a savings in the long run by having this pension plan from the state. So it's a kind of a twofold benefit.
Councilmember, thank you, Councilmember Little. Councilmember Kennedy?
What's the purpose of the meeting for the 22nd?
That's to basically tell the employees and have a conversation with them about what the next steps are. Not only for this, but I think there's a couple other benefit items that we're going to be discussing as well. So it's once this is approved, then we can go ahead and set the timeline with the employees of what to anticipate, elections, all the steps that go into it.
So they've already had information given to them pertaining to the old plan, new plan?
Yes, and this is the next steps in that process, the more in-depth portion.
So should we wait till the next meeting to vote on this after all the employees got this information that you plan on giving them?
No, because we wouldn't give them the next set of information if this wasn't done, because we can't move to the next step without this not being done, because we can't submit the application to the state to begin the process. So it's chicken or the egg. If we don't do this, the application can't be sent to the state to start the retirement. And then there's no point in having the next meeting with the employees.
Councilmember, do you have another question, Councilmember Kennedy?
I'm sure that my fellow council members are going to piggyback on this and get the clarification that's coming.
Councilmember Noble?
Just, I guess the question is, if it's an application to the state, but I feel like the employee should be in the room first to say all that we're getting ready to do. They agree to, because regardless, if we vote for it, it's gonna happen, right? But at the same time, can we withdraw the application if we see it's not something that people want to do?
Oh, absolutely. The council, if there's two times where this can happen. One, the employees can elect not to participate, and we wouldn't have the appropriate percentage of participants, which then decline the program. And that would be the tell. So if the employees don't want to participate, that would be the way that they would signify that they don't want to participate, is by voting. They have to vote
Okay. And what's that percentage? Do you know?
60%.
I do wanna make something clear. This is nothing that just came about.
Right.
This is what the employees, so if you remember a couple of years ago, we've already passed a resolution to set forth to go through this plan. And that's when we talk to the employees. So this is not like something that's brand new to them, saying that we're making this change. But the reason why we're coming to the body is this is what we're bringing it to you from the employees. They actually expressed that they wanted this to happen sooner than later, but because of obviously of the audits, which was preventing this, this was sooner than we could, we just completed the one that we needed. And so, they wanted it to happen, last fiscal year, but we told them we could not. We've had several meetings, telling them, hey, listen, we're waiting on the audits. This is what's going on, because I'm telling you wholeheartedly, this is what they want. Even if they want, I do want to say for the state plan, the investment period is 10 years. I would say even if the employee does not stay the full 25 or 30 years, you at least get 10 years out of them so they can get the money that they put up, and also the town. Being in this role as town administrator, it costs too much for the turnover. The amount of money that we have to spend on uniforms, the amount of money that we have to spend getting people to get drug tested and everything like that goes into the background. Being in this role, it's opened my eyes to see how much turnover costs. And it's not good. And so that's the reason why we're bringing it to the body now.
And
Thank you, Chief Reese.
So the
Mr.
mayor-
O'Connor, you would add something else?
yes, and so the mayor and council aware, when I'm saying the employees and speaking in the entire body that wants it, there's only one employee who does not want to participate in the plan. And they've made that very clear. Myself and the chief have had the conversation, and their particular 457 is going to be made whole. So when they depart employment, they will have everything that was supposed to be there and be able to move on that way. So there's only one out of all of our staff that do not want to participate.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Um,
Council President Bell.
I had a question.
My hand
Is
it
it-
over.
Okay. Is there a portfolio manager for the plan, or are employees responsible for managing their own contributions?
No, the employees do not manage any of the contributions. The portfolio manager is at the state level. So the state has their board, they manage the entire portfolio for the entire state retirement system. If that's what you're talking about. If you're talking about for the 457, they have the choice of aggressive, moderate, or low risk, basically, when they choose how they're going to invest into the 457.
So help me understand the match, so the contribution of the employee is what again? And then the match for the state is what?
For the 457 for the state.
For the state?
Okay, so there's two separate ones. One, it's 6% or 7% for the employer, and which the employee matches.
Okay. And then for the 457?
It's employer only contribution. Which
Okay,
is 6%.
yeah, got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Brunson.
I remember, one of the questions was, can you back out of the application and didn't want it. So how much initially is that gonna cost the town for the application and to get started?
So upfront, there's no upfront cost. The cost comes once the state has actually accepted our application and they confirm that they're going to do the first audit, which is anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000. And they're going to be auditing all of our payroll, job descriptions, and accounting mechanisms that are in place.
So right now, the town is paying 6% for the 457. When we go to the state plan, we're gonna be paying 7%.
It could be 6 or 7.
6 or 7. So it's gonna be an increase on the town's budget as well as the $5,000 to $6,000 for the application fee.
A possible 1% increase, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy.
So would that be a matching? So it wouldn't just be 6 to 7%. It would be matching up to 6 to 7, whatever the employee is contributing.
It's set by the state, so if the state says the employer contributes 7%, the employee shall contribute 7%. So that's how it's written. You don't, there's no wiggle room within it. So if the employer is contributing 6%, the employee has to contribute 6%.
Do the employees know this?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Because most of them will match up to what you match, not you're mandated to match a set amount.
Yeah, there is no choice in this because it's a statewide system. So when the rates are set, the rates are set.
All right, thank you.
If I could just add a couple of other points we discussed on this resolution in the past. There's 7 steps in the process. And so there's portions where we apply, there's portions where they determine what the rates are. There's points where we accept the cost estimate in writing and the decision of the employee vote, and also the submission of information to enroll by certain deadlines. So there are multiple phases in the process, and we are on.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I'd say this is step 2 for us.
Step 2.
Because we've already approved the entrance into the or authorization for staff to start that process. This would be step 2. And the following steps, Mayor, will take us about a year.
And what would be the next step formally that comes to the body after this resolution?
It would probably be in October or November, where the state retirement says that we meet all eligibility requirements and we are authorized to take the next step forward, which will likely be the audit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Councilmember Noble.
Last question. You're confident that we're gonna meet the eligibility requirements?
On paper, we do. On paper, we meet them. When the auditors come in, that's always the next step.
So I just want to be clear.
Council President McDonald.
Just so I'm clear, Mr. O'Connor, so we've authorized entrance into the system. And then the second step is to terminate the current 457 plan. And then the third.
Is the acceptance of the application by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Little.
What will the funds to match the employees up to 6 to 7% come from, or is that already in our budget? Is that already budgeted?
So based on the existing ICMA RC plan, which has been contributing 6% for an extended period of time, the funds would just be one for the other on that. No, it would be to Councilmember Bronson's point, if they said 7%, you may see a 1 point increase on that, which is de minimis at best when you're talking about the overall 6 or 7%.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Mr. Frankenfield, I see that you're online. Do you have any comment to add about the fiscal impact of this resolution?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as we talk about fiscal year 25's budget, we're under the assumption that our resolution in front of us tonight is going to be adopted, and the town's match is going to cease. And then again, in fiscal year 26 or 27, when we have our estimates from the state, then we'll include it back into the budget. The one thing that I want to stress is we're still in the application phase, so the town doesn't have a ton of risk here. If we go through this process and determine that the state's retirement plan isn't the best option, we can always go back and say, retroactive till the end of fiscal year 24, we're going to roll back in the 457 plan, catch up our 6% on the employees. So there's room to change this legislation after the fact as we work through this application and get all the points ironed out, was the one thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. Councilmember Brownson.
So on that note, if in 2 years down the road and we want to go back to the 457, you will have to go back and catch up the 6% for all employees if we decide that you want to get out of the 457? Is that what you mean? Go back and catch up that 6% that you were paying each quarter for each employee?
I'm saying the way the legislation's drafted is we're going to stop the town's retirement contribution the end of this fiscal year. So we're going to go through fiscal year 25 and we're not going to be contributing to a plan. If we get through fiscal year 25 and determine that the state's retirement plan isn't the best option or it's cost prohibitive, we can always amend this legislation to say, as of the end of fiscal year 24, we're going to catch up the employees for what they should have earned in the 457 plan during fiscal year 25. So I'm saying there's not a ton of risk to the town or the employees by adopting this legislation tonight because it gives us time to shop the state's retirement plan.
One question to follow up with that.
Councilmember Brownson.
So for fiscal year 25 and possibly 26, the employees will not have a 401k plan because you're dropping the 457 and you haven't been approved by the state. So in that time period, the employee will not have any type of 401k savings.
No. They will have a 457, which will be an employee contribution only during that time.
Oh.
Right. So they'll still
Okay.
have a 457. We're not abolishing the 457.
Okay.
What we're simply doing is there was a provision which I made sure I put in here. We can't even start this process because we have an employer contribution only plan. And the way the Code of Maryland's written, it says you cannot participate if you have an employer contribution only plan. So we want the employees to have their 457. We want them to contribute it. We want them to have that defined benefit, but we can't move forward because we're the only ones that are contributing.
Okay, thank you. That's clarity for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Frankenfield. Is there any further discussion on resolution 15-24? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Little,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Hines,
No.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownson,
Yes.
Council President McDonald,
Yes.
Mayor Lily.
Yes.
Motion passed, 6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Next, we will have ordinance number 04-24. I'm sorry, we'll have resolution 16-24. My apologies. This is a resolution to approve a memorandum of understanding between the town's speed camera vendor, Red Speed LLC, the town of North Brentwood, and the town of Forest Heights pertaining to its police department in order to memorialize the parties' understanding regarding the capture, processing, and issuance of automated speed enforcement camera citations provided on behalf of the town of North Brentwood by Forest Heights Police Department. This is introduced by myself. Mayor Lilly. I move that we adopt resolution 16-24.
Second.
16. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 16-24. Discussion. Councilmember Kennedy.
If the town of Forest Heights in the future deem it necessary to end this contract, what are the stipulations?
Well, I'll toss that to Mr. Best. If you could take a moment to digest and answer that, sir.
Yeah, I wrote this many months ago. Any party elects not to renew, it must be notified the other party of an intention not to renew this agreement at least 60 days prior to each anniversary date. Thought there was a 30-day. The parties may terminate, this is section 11, the parties may terminate this MOU upon 60 days written notification to the other parties as outlined in this agreement. 60 days.
And I think further under item 12, it says MOU will commence and become effective upon signature of all parties and will remain in effect for a period of 1 year. It automatically renews for a 1-year period under the same terms on each anniversary date for a total of 5 years. Is that the information we're looking for, Councilmember Kennedy?
Well, if you read a little further, it says at least 60 days prior to such anniversary date. So is it 60-day notice or is it 60 days prior to the
If
anniversary?
you elect not to renew, it's 60 days. Otherwise, if there's no election to not to renew, it rolls over for 5 consecutive years. Other than that, you can, or with or without cause, you can just terminate the contract with 60 days notice.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Noble?
On that note, on this memorandum, I don't see any dates, so how will we determine the anniversary date? Is it the date of the resolution or will it be the signature date? There's no date.
Signature of all parties.
We'll modify
Date.
that and put the signature date expressly on it.
But we'll know the anniversary date. Thank you.
So there'll be a signature line or signature date next to the signature line just to establish what date it became effective. Which one came first? Which one came first? Because I want to make sure I looked over on the side because it's not.
I raised my hand up.
So go ahead, Councilman.
So, because you're always looking on that side, that's what it is. So, I think I remember, you saying last week when we discussed, or last time we discussed this, that they possibly could use, a civilian to do the monitoring, that it might pass state, but I did hear yesterday that it didn't pass the state, so they cannot use a civilian. So it makes this memorandum also more important.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson.
Yeah, they would have wanted it anyway because they're so tiny that whether they had authorization to do it in-house or not, they would have wanted someone to help them with it.
Thank you, Mr. Rest. Council President McDonald.
Yes, my question is, have we established a real benefit to the town through this partnership?
The benefits revenue, I believe, on the Exhibit A. $5. You have a $40 citation, the town will be,
Where is that?
taking a big chunk of that for its purposes. Plus, North Brentwood will be paying its speed camera vendor under its own contract with them. So the benefit is the revenues. I don't know what the projected revenues are. Rhode Island Avenue probably has the throughput of maybe half of Maryland 210, if that. So You know, my guess is somewhere around maybe 30, 40, $40,000 a year for the town.
So. Excuse me. We established what the fee was $5 per approved violation. Is that correct, Chief Reese? From last meeting? Yeah, it's in Exhibit A. Is there any further discussion on resolution 16-24? Councilmember Noble.
I just look forward to seeing the revenue that this brings, in its first month, please. Thank you.
That's right.
Well, is that effort versus return, or effort versus what is captured as revenue? Because if they're not approving a lot of tickets, or if they're not approving a lot of citations, then the effort will be low. And if there's a high number of the tickets or the violations thrown out, that means there's a problem with the camera system in the first place, and that has to be addressed. Is that correct? Mr. Best, if you want to add something?
Say that, and then Chief can better say, I think the town will spend less than 30 seconds to earn that $5. So it's a pretty good return based on the amount of time spent.
Councilmember Noble.
That's what you say, Mr. Best. Okay. Is someone doing it now?
Just one moment, Mr. Best.
Is someone doing it now for them?
No, they have yet to deploy fully red speed to do their speed camera work.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm looking forward to all this revenue it will bring, and I will be going very slow on Rhode Island Avenue. Thank you.
One of the benefits is that this vendor is the same vendor that we use as well. I'm sorry, you're not a council member.
No, no.
Mr. O'Connor. Mr.
Oh,
O'Connor.
So I would say if you want to put a number to it, since I think the council is inquisitive about that. On average, it takes about 60 seconds to approve an automated enforcement violation if they're doing it thoroughly. So if you have 60 minutes in an hour at $5, that's $300 an hour. And if an officer is paid $25 an hour, you've made $275 for that hour based on a $5 per ticket. So 60 tickets equals 300 less your expense.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Councilmember Brownson.
So this has nothing to do with collection, correct? Because we know how collection goes. We don't get money back from collection, but this is just processing. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Little.
Is there an estimate for how many hearing appearances? And is there a designated person for the hearing appearances?
So it's all on, if the violator elects to do a hearing, one hearing per month is usually about what we do now currently. And that person will be our designated person. We have a designated person that goes to our hearing, plus the vendor goes as well with us. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Any further discussion on resolution 16-24? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Councilmember Hines,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Browson,
Yes.
Council President McDonald,
Yes.
Mayor Lily.
Yes.
Motion passed. Oh, I missed Councilmember Little.
Yes.
Mayor Lily. I have to call him last, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. 7 yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we'll move to ordinance number 04-24. This is an emergency ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights, Maryland, to amend the tax rates and the budget line items and otherwise reapprove and readopt the fiscal year 24 budget and authorize its further amendment by resolution. And this is introduced by council members Brownson and Noble. And this is, we're asking to vote on this tonight as an emergency ordinance, which would go in effect tonight. I move that we adopt ordinance number 04-24.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 04-24. Discussion. Yes.
Question to the, Mr. Franken's.
Frankenfield.
About the section 1, it has, town real estate taxes, it's uncredited 4,800, 600.
If you could, let me give Mr. Frankenfield, he can provide a quick overview of some of the points and things
Okay,
that need to be
right, 'cause
included.
Okay.
So thank you for the question. Mr. Frankenfield, sir?
Yeah, happy to. I didn't hear that question. I don't know if that mic was on, but I can give you a summary of this ordinance and the changes we made.
I think it was in reference to, so as you do your intro and your overview, just mention the refund for the real estate taxes that's a part of this
Okay.
ordinance.
So essentially, let's talk about section 2 first. So section 2, we talk about the tax rates that were adopted per the budget resolution. And then the second section, the new tax rates, that was the direction that we gave the county. So we said, okay, for non-commercial real property, the tax rate's going to be 4,286 instead of 4,654 that was adopted in the original budget resolution. So tonight, per our conversations last meeting, we decided to postpone collecting that additional taxes. So tonight we're amending our budget to reflect the direction that we gave the county, and that direction that we gave the county got us to a decrease in tax revenues. So then if we look at section 1, we address the non-commercial, the residents, the residential, that decreased 4,600. It wasn't a significant change in tax revenue. The second section, commercial real estate taxes, that decreased 51,000, and then the rented residential decreased 88,000 for a total decrease of $145,000 of tax revenue. To balance the budget, we took that 145 out of the speed camera budget. There was a budget line item, speed camera savings, that we're not going to utilize this year, 69,000. And the remainder, the 76,000, we took out of the Police Public Safety Center budget, which was for the new building, included some repairs along with debt payments and rent. What we're seeing year to date is we're not going to utilize that full 325,000 that we had appropriated, so we took the remainder of the budget decrease from there. So I'll pause there. Now, the one thing that we also called out, and I breezed over this when I talked about section 2, but back in section 2, in the revised section, we called out the special subclass, National View. So per our contracted annexation agreement with National View, we promised decreased tax rates as part of that annexation agreement. So we're incorporating the language into the annexation agreement into our budget with this revision as well. So that's why you see the 0.10 tax rate for the special subclass, which are the National View properties. So I'll stop there.
Councilmember Noble?
I had a question with the new tax rates as revised. Because initially, I guess the first section, the rates were what we adopted. And then we're revising them, but originally we didn't have anything in there for this special subclass. So I agree with the others, but how do we, I mean, how, we're just adding a new category that we didn't adopt initially, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And we will spell it out going forward. We should have included it last year because it does have a different tax rate. We're just including it for this
So
go round.
did we collect anything from
I
National View?
assume we did, but they were probably billed that 0.0451 cents, the next line down. So they'll owe us a little bit more because they were billed at the 0.0451 rate.
Council President McDonald, and then
Hello.
Councilmember Bronson.
Mr. Frankenfield, thank you. I guess my question is, what would be our communication to the residents regarding the adjustment? I think we need to be all singing from the same sheet of music when we're communicating with the community about it. And
So
maybe
my
go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. My recommendation would be, so the residents got a tax bill less than what they really should have for fiscal year 24. We followed our process. We just didn't properly direct the county on how much to bill. So I would describe it as a deferral. You know, the residents got a deferral in fiscal year 24 that the town is going to need to recoup in fiscal year 25 just because of our liquidity situation and the reserves. But essentially, yeah, it was a deferral on tax collections that should have been paid in the current fiscal year.
Councilmember Noble, thank you, Mr. Frankenfield.
I guess I'm misunderstanding something here. The town made an error on the taxes and they collected less than they should have. We had a finance committee meeting to discuss our finances. And then we voted for the town to eat the difference. So now it sounds like we're going back to the residents to try to collect. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, this resolution is changing, it's officially changing the rate to what has been collected so far. And it is stating that we are finding the $145,000 in revenue by reducing expenses in certain areas. And it's officially changing the ordinance we adopted at the beginning of the fiscal year to show that the rates are what we've been collecting, even though that was less than what we intended to collect. But it doesn't set rates for next year. We have a $145,000, less that we collected. When we budget for next year, we can decide if we need to increase the rate or if we need to increase revenue or decrease an expense to recapture that. That's a separate decision. It's not handled as part of this ordinance. Yes.
I think in communicating with the town or its residents is that we need, when things happen, we need to make them aware. We need to make the community aware this is what happened, not any fault of theirs. And this is what so we're back to where we were. So it's nothing they have to do, but they know that this is what occurred, because when they get the next tax bill, it's going to be very different. And they probably want to know, why is this more and this one was much less? It's because it was a mistake.
Mr. Best, do you have a point to add in relation to that?
Yeah, I want to point out that the charter requires that when you pass ordinances, particularly emergency ordinance, that you place a fair summary of that ordinance in either a newspaper of general circulation or the town newsletter. So what I suggest you do is when you give that fair summary, you have a separate article in your newsletter explaining what happened. I don't think you need to get into a lot of depth on what's going to happen in the next budget cycle, because they'll have notice of that and they can participate in that. And you may or may not go one way or another on that. So I don't think you need to stir the pot a lot on something that you have not yet crossed the bridge on. So I think you can handle the public notice requirement on exactly what happened and kill two birds, because you would have had to anyway give notice and a fair summary of this ordinance. And so you're going to explain the ordinance and what happened, basically that there was a mistake, they were underbilled, but it was forgiven.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Councilmember Kennedy.
So for clarification, when the constant yield tax percentage was authorized, so you're telling me that we agreed on one fee, but that was not sent to the county? Is that what initiated this?
Yes, this particular ordinance amends your original budget ordinance where you levied. Not only did you set the budget in terms of monies and line items, but you established the tax rates for the different classes of real property. But there was a staff error in reporting those rates to the county, who is your agent and doing the consolidated tax bill. And now you've decided to, instead of recouping through a supplementary tax bill, you've decided to forgive it. And yeah, that's where you lay. And that's what the purpose of this ordinance in. Otherwise, the tax rate was established by law, by ordinance. In order for you to forgive that and change that, you got to do it correctly and do it by ordinance. You can't just pass some Robert's Rules motion to forgive that tax. You got to actually go in there and do a new ordinance.
Understood. Now, the other question I have is, whose decision was it to send the letter out and try and collect from everybody 10 months into the year?
Well, the letter didn't go out.
Letter went out.
No, letter didn't go out.
I don't believe that went out.
I'll clarify. A letter didn't go out from the county. In the mayor's letter last month, I put a letter in notifying residents about the mistake and then the estimated amount that it would cost to fix it. At that time, council had not adopted an ordinance to officially change the rate down. And so by law, we were supposed to collect on what the original ordinance rate was set. So no official communication went out from the county, and at council's direction to vote on this ordinance, that won't happen.
I guess my point is we have a breach in communication and it needs to be fixed regardless of what level it's at.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Is there any other discussion on ordinance number 04-24? Oh, Councilmember Hines.
I wanted to say that a resident approached me and said that they got a letter stating that they're, about the tax was gonna, $102 or so, yeah. I don't know if that's about it. I can bring her to you.
Okay, well, like I said, as it relates to the county's official letter to collect a supplemental collection, that did not go out. I did mention the issue in the mayor's letter in the newsletter last month. However, that's not an official document, and it didn't say the collection. It didn't state a date or anything like that. It was talking about the situation. Now, it's not going to happen. Obviously, council's making a different decision to officially change the rate and to forgive the additional amount that would have been collected that's not going to be. So thank you for that, Councilmember Hines and Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Brownson.
I just had one question for Mr. Frankenfield. On section 1, the amounts of the adjustment, they're not consistent with the amount for each resident of what they were supposed to would have paid? Because for total real estate taxes, non-commercial, that's residential, right?
Correct.
So you have $4,847. That's not household or residence. That's just how you're adjusting it with how do you come up with that figure there?
So I got assessments from SStat for each property type and then applied it to the tax rates that we provided to the county and came up with what the budget should be. So that's how I got to my adjustment. But yeah, I got, assessed values of each property type from SStat, calculated the tax rate, and that's how we landed on the budget adjustment.
Okay, so when you originally said that it might be $100 or to $200 to $300 per household, that's not reflected in this amount, correct?
Right, because it's really the commercial properties that got the biggest tax savings and the rented residential that got the biggest tax savings. I mean, what I really think is we probably didn't have great assessed values when we built the budget the first time. So really it will be around $100 each way, but I'm confident in the revised budget amounts.
Thank you.
Following up on that question, Mr. Frankenfield, so you said we didn't have greater assessed values. How would we fix that?
So SStat gives us reports with a constant yield every year. So I got updated assessment reports as we were going through this process. So we'll have good assessments for next fiscal year. The chief and I went through properties in each tax class and moved some things around that should have been in commercial that were in residential. So we've reconciled it. We're good going forward. It won't come up again.
Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 04-24? Council President McDonald?
Just one quick question. I'm just trying to get clarity on the adjustment. So for page 3 of 7, we have those 3 items, as you mentioned, at 145, and then we have 2 items on 4 of 7 with the same amount.
Correct.
Is that reflecting something different, Mr. Frankenfield? Please help me.
So the top is revenue. So the page 3 of 7 is we're decreasing town revenue 145,000. And then page 4 of 7, where we're decreasing town appropriations by the same amount to keep the budget
Gotcha.
balance.
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
I just have another question. I know it seems as though to me, we made a lot of adjustments to the budget. So are we gonna get a new budget for FY24 so we can look at actuals? Mr. Frankenfield?
Yes.
Yep. So
We get actuals every month.
Hmm?
We get actuals every month in the report that the treasurer sends.
So that's what it is. So
Those are
that is the actuals.
Up to
So-
the prior month.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I'll change, if this is adopted tonight, I'll change the budget, and the budget's always live in that report that you get around the 15th of the month.
And then just one other question. You are going to be at our meeting on the end of the month, correct?
I have some coaching responsibilities, so I have to confirm.
We need you here. Thank you.
We miss you.
Mr. O'Connor, you have something to add?
I was just speaking with Chief Reese and I did the math, and maybe Mr. Frankenfield, correct me if I'm wrong here, but with 987 homes in the town and the residential rate of $4,647, the actual tax break to each home in the town is $4.70. And what we would be doing is giving a tax break to those that are benefiting by renting out their homes. And then our commercial properties that are actually the higher rates would get a higher rate. So our residents, for the residential rate, if you just do the basic math, it's $4.70. And then they're actually going to be bearing the burden in the overall budget because we're giving that big tax break to the businesses and those that are profiting on their homes. I mean, am I about right on that, Mr. Frankenfield?
So, I mean, essentially, if you look at that section 2, the residents and the rented residential properties, they saved 4 cents per 100 from what we adopted and what we should have billed. So my budget change there doesn't reflect that weight evenly just because of that new assessed value and getting to the 2 total. But you're right, the commercials were really the group that got underbilled out of this mistake is the gist of it.
I thought I'd bring that to council's attention in the decision that you're making.
So just to get more context on that, what I'm seeing is on page 3 of 7, the adjustment for rented residential. Well, Mr. Frankenfield, can you tell us what happened, or not what happened, but how we pull it from there on the revenue side, and then on the expense side, how that measures out?
Yeah. So essentially, with this change, the town's going to collect $145,000 less than it budgeted for.
Right.
So we have to decrease appropriations. I picked 2 lines to decrease that. The speed camera savings line we haven't used in this fiscal year. We're not going to have any savings. We're fighting for every penny in this budget. So that's the line I decreased in automated enforcement. In the police budget, the public safety center, we budgeted $325,000. From my rough projections, I think we need $150 to get through the fiscal year in that budget line. So that's where I took the remainder of the total 145 that we had to decrease appropriations.
Okay, so my question is, if we didn't pass the ordinance, the difference would be $4,647 on the residential side, but it would be larger for the other entities in town, like the commercial and rented residential. No, he didn't freeze.
Your question is, if we don't pass the ordinance, let me explain it this way. So it's more, so the average resident saved 4 cents. If the property's 300,000, the property's assessed at 300,000.
I guess another way to ask the question, is there any way for the residents to save more as part of the change in rate than the other entities? Or do they save more because their rate is higher? And that's the only place we can draw the savings from. That's just the question I'm trying to get clarified.
Is there, no, not without, but then we have to go revisit all the tax rates again, right? Because I think you're proposing that, the residents don't bear the burden, but the rented and the commercial bear the burden of this change.
But the way it's reflected on page 3 is just basically a reversal. It's just a reversal. If you just take the rates and you adjust them, these are the numbers that you get out different after you change the rate. Is that correct?
That's correct. And it's basically
Okay.
about the assessment, right? So it's,
Yes.
the amount of assessment in each one of those tax classes at the
Okay.
revised rate gets us to the ending budgeted amount, I guess is
Okay.
how I should explain.
Thank you. Councilmember Noble.
On page 5, for the commercial real property, the original tax rate was 0.5313, and now the new tax rate is 0.0451. So is that what we recorded or what we reported to the county
That's correct.
originally?
That's correct.
That was a big number.
Can I ask another question? Can we adjust the residential rate down and leave the other rates where they were? But by ordinance, we can decide to change. It's going to change the rate. It'll change the ordinance itself that we adopted. It would amend the original ordinance that we adopted back in July. Yes.
0.0451 versus 0.5313.
So we could potentially send a supplement to the rented residential and the in the commercial, and then only adjust the rate for the residents, because that's where we were trying to make that's where we're trying to lessen the impact. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mr. Best, what's your opinion on that? If we strike the change to the non-commercial, but then we also amend the commercial property to the original adopted, and then the residential, we amend to the originally adopted.
So basically what you're saying is to go with Plan A, which is to send a letter out and impose a supplemental tax at the original rate that was intended and it was passed by ordinance.
No. I think it may be a little different, Mr. Best. I think what we're proposing is we will reduce the rate for non-commercial residential real property. So primary owner occupant residences that are residential would have their rate changed to 0.4286 officially, which has been collected so far, but that the other rates that were set for commercial real property and for rented residential, those would be allowed to remain at the rate that we passed in the ordinance at the beginning of fiscal year 24, which is 0.5313 for commercial and 0.464 for rented residential. And then those properties we get a supplement and not the primary residence.
All right, go ahead and articulate how you would amend this. Articulate what numbers would change to what in this listing.
Okay, give it just a moment. Councilmember Kennedy.
Might be losing it tonight, but 2 + 2 is not 4 on these papers. So you're telling me the majority of the town is rented property?
No, I'm saying, so if you look at page 3 of 7, the assessed value of the non-commercial, yeah, I understand your question, but the assessed value of the non-commercial at the rate we adopted, which was the rate that we told the county to bill, which was the 4.286, equates to $950,000. We had budgeted for $955,000, so to fix that, we need to decrease that budget line by $4,000. The budget changes don't reflect properly the impact to the residents. It's not only $4,000, it's that the 955, when we initially drafted the budget, probably didn't reflect the proper assessed values, if that helps clarify.
Let me say it a different way, Mr. Mayor. The town has a tax base, which is the assessed valuation of all property, commercial, rented, and single-family dwelling residential properties in the town. 10% of the town's tax base is commercial. That means 90% is residential. However, of the 90% that's residential, about 15% of that is rented. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think further, when we look at what we adopted, we plan to collect $183,000 from rented residential. The new amount would be 95,000. That is the difference we get with changing the rate. And then for this year, we budgeted 955 for residential collection. Now we would be expecting to collect 950. So there's a smaller difference between what we budgeted for, what we expect to collect from residential, even though the number is much higher.
Yeah, another way to look at it too is it's counterintuitive, these numbers, 4,647, 51,775, and 88,000, because of the size of the tax base that's attributed to those classes. But the reason why it's counterintuitive is because the numbers that were reported to the county, they were erroneous in a larger way for some of these classes and not so much for the others. And that's what kind of makes this counterintuitive.
I see.
Which shifts the burden in a matter of speaking to make up this shortfall to the residential owner, which is ironic. That was not what's desirous. It's almost, excuse me, better to go with Plan A and do the supplemental tax bill. That would be a more fair way to collect these revenues and share the burden than to go with this budget amendment, which is going to shift the burden a bit to the residential owner.
So, Mr. Frankenfield, talk to us a little bit more about the other changes that happened as part of fixing or getting better assessed values. Tell me like a story what that means. Was there like a commercial property that was overassessed or underassessed? And so that with the change of the rate, the revenue amount swings down more than it would have prior to? That's kind of where I'm trying to get to the heart of.
Yeah, no, I mean, my assessment is when we drafted the budget originally, we had 100,000 too much that we were going to collect from rented residential. So we should have had $1,055,000 under regular residential and 83,000 in rented residential. And as we tie out those assessed values in the tax rate, that's how we get to these big adjustments here, is the gist of, but I get the point that, oh my gosh, we're only decreasing $4,000 on the rented residential. It's just about the assessment and what's in what property type with SSTAT's record.
Okay, and so the fact that the assessment was wrong and that we over budgeted what we were going to collect, we should have had a lower amount in the beginning. So that's just reflected now because we're making the change to the rate, and also a new assessment, a more accurate assessment is being made of the actual property's value.
That's exactly right. You nailed it. But I still like your idea about the commercial properties should pay the original tax assessment. I think there's no reason that group, that's my take. I think that would be the group that should get the supplemental billing.
And so in that scenario, what would happen is the town would still recoup most of the revenue that we needed. We would just not send a supplement to the primary residents now.
Yep. So it would be tax classes 3 and 4 would get a revised billing, and then tax class 5, which is the rented residential, they would get a revised billing. But the owner occupied residents would not. So I think I like that idea.
Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. Councilmember Kennedy.
I might need to have a one-on-one with you, sidebar, because these numbers aren't adding up. Because the the non-commercial real property and the rented real property tax rate is actually the same for the original. So it's 0.4654. And then under the new tax rate as revised, they're both 0.4286. So I'm still not following how on section 1, you have 4,647 for non-res or residential. And then for rented residential, you have 88,000 if it's only 10%. So that number should be noticeably, well, if the 4,647 is correct, then 10% of that would be $464. And then, you know, it's like every time we ask a question, it seems like we get a different answer with numbers. So I'm not following that at all.
Yep. Yep. No, I understand your question and the way this reads. I'm saying when we adopted the budget originally, we budgeted for too much in rented residential. So we need to adjust it 88,000 to get where it should be.
Okay. All right. So
That's
you're saying
what
the
I'm saying.
adopted budget amount was incorrect to begin with.
Correct. Correct. And we would have allocated it differently along those 3 lines is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Does that make more sense? So the rate and the value of the properties that were being assessed as rented residential is a lot lower than what was projected in the budget. And so with the accurate assessment, we know exactly what we should be charging. It's just, since we're making this change now and all of the research and calculations and rate changes and tax classes, with all those things being reconciled, we are also noticing a larger adjustment there as part of the budget process, not because we're undercharging them, but because the assessment of what those properties are actually worth is different. And it's verified now. So, Mr. Frankenfield, is there an example of what the total amount of assessed value was projected initially and what it is now for rented residential? Maybe if we get the full assessed value of those properties, are the ones that we have records for.
I have, bear with me, I have assessed values now. So the gist of it is owner occupied residential is 88% of the tax base of the town. Harborview is less than 1%. The commercial properties of the town are approximately 3% of the town's assessed value, and the rentals are approximately 9% is the best I can give you. Now, this is based on assessments last week conversations I had with SStat in drafting this. But that's the breakdown of the town's tax base, if that helps.
I think about how much, so the 88,000 coming down to 95, and that's 10%. So it's like the assessed value for the rented residential was like double of what it should have been.
Yeah, it seems like it. When we drafted the budget, we overestimated. We underestimated what was in regular residential, and we overestimated what was in rented residential.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 4-24?
What did we decide?
So we can do one of two things. We can adopt the ordinance as is, or we can adjust the rate for non-commercial, which is residences, those are primary residential homes, to leave it at the previous rate. But the savings that folks will get as part of that is going to be, what did we say, 4 cents a household? It's $4,000 total.
So my question is,
And if you turn your mic on to ask your question.
so what are you proposing here is that we forgive the primary residents of this and rebuild the commercial and the rental residential property. Is that what you're proposing? Yeah.
That's one proposal.
Yeah, but that's not what's on the resolution, so we would have to
That's not
change.
what's on the ordinance, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I'm thinking since we're 10 months in, the person, unfortunately, of the group in that did get the bulk of this, that benefited the most from this was commercial. If the rented residential is 9%, as we were just told, then to try and make up 88,000, if you look at it, the whether it's rented or you live in it, it's the same percentage. So if we're going to do that, I say, since we're in the 10th month, just leave those two how it is and then reassess the commercial, because that's actually a huge difference from what it should have been, 0.5313 down to 0.0451. That's a huge difference.
That's a fair proposal. So if we do that, what happens is owners of property that are residential will have the rate stay. They'll have the same amount collected as been collected this year so far. And we will keep the rate for commercial the same as what we adopted in the original ordinance, which will net $51,775. So instead of needing to make up for a shortfall of 145,000, it's a little less. Let's do the exact number here. It's $93,225.
But we will still have to go to the commercial individuals with the letter saying that we made the error and try to collect.
Yeah,
So the supplemental letter would go to commercial businesses and not to residential property owners under this proposal.
And also to rent it. Right?
No,
because that's a difference of 0.0368 between the non-commercial real property and the rented residential real property. The difference for the commercial is actually 0.04862.
Yeah,
As a
I think it should be rental as well, because that's a large sum of money as well.
well, you're looking at it as a large sum. It's only 0.03.
We're talking dollars, how much money, not the point.
Understand, but I don't think these numbers were factual to begin with. So to take 10% of the people and divide that, or of the homes, and divide the 88,000 and tax them, which would essentially be a heck of a lot higher than the 0.4286. That's why I'm saying this whole thing is actually, I don't think it's correct.
Well, I didn't calculate it, but
Yes, but that's my recommendation, is to go ahead and rectify the commercial real property in the last 2 months of the fiscal year, and just leave the real property as is.
One other thing, Councilmember, before you ask your question, we also have the option, we can table this, or we can postpone this until the next meeting to work on it a little more and figure out what we want to be in it. I move we, Councilmember,
Mayor.
did you wanna, just 1 second, Mr. Frankenfield. Councilmember, did you have a question that you feel needs to be inserted before we?
Well, yes. I guess we've already adopted the original tax rate and the proposal that you made for the commercial real property, put that rate back to where it was, and the rented residential to the 0.46. That makes more sense than I don't know that it requires a lot of, because we've already
We just need to change
adopted
one
this,
thing.
right?
Yeah,
We've already adopted this. It's factual.
Mr. Frankenfield?
I would just add that the county, we started the conversation with them and they're eager for us to give them a final decision. So I would hope we could come to a conclusion tonight so we can provide them with final direction.
Okay. Where does the council stand? We have
I stand,
proposals.
okay. I stand leaving it like we originally said, and then nobody get billed again. And we eat it all.
Okay. Councilmember No.
I stand with non-commercial real property stays at 0.4286. The commercial real property will be 0.5313, which we have already adopted. And the rented residential real property will be at 0.4654, which we've previously adopted. And everything else is the same because nothing changed. That's yours.
Was your second item 0.5313, not 4313?
Oh, 0.5313. I'm
Because
sorry.
0.4313 would be a slight decrease.
No. 0.5313. That's my proposal.
Okay, I got that. So leave non-commercial residential or non-commercial real property the same. For commercial, leave it. For non-commercial, change it to 4.4286. For commercial to 0.5313. And what was the other item?
Rented residential 0.4654.
Okay, that's one proposal. Councilmember Kennedy.
Do we actually have dollar amounts? Actual
50
dollar amounts?
50 grand in the commercial
I'm sorry.
change.
I'm talking about the actual assessed valuation of the 88% that's residential, the assessed valuation of the 3% that's commercial, and the assessed valuation of the 9% that's rented residential. That way we can do the math and see. Because right now these numbers are not adding up to me at all.
Yeah, so if I share screen, oh well. So there's 257 million in the 88%. There's 700,000 in National Harbor. There's 9.1 million in commercial. And there's 26.1 million in the rented residential.
I'm sorry, rented residential is what again?
26.1 million. And you should get to a total of 293 million.
All right, so the rented, you said is 26.1, so 26,100,000, and the non-rented was how much again, please?
The non-rented was 257 million.
And we have exactly how many homes?
869 in the residential and 90 in the rentals.
And how many commercial, please?
19.
Thank you.
So are we working to vote on this or revise it, or what are we doing with this?
You have a proposal on the floor that may satisfy, which is to change one rate.
So you got everybody's vote already? I'm trying to move this along.
You should be able to start on the top.
Just giving Councilmember Kennedy a second to get.
Yeah, here's the, I'm trying to show you my assessed values if that helps.
My last question is, did we have any, can we look at the assessments that were used last year? Do we have access to assessments for last year?
I don't have it, but here is what I thought the proper budget should have been, and it kind of spells out that confusion about, I assumed we should have budgeted for 1.18 in rented residential, but we budgeted for 9.55. And it kind of explains that part about where rented residential, we budgeted for 183. I thought we should have budgeted for 103 in drafting the budget. So that kind of explains the changes.
Okay. Well, I don't know that we've gotten any closer to a resolution. What's the date that we can give the county word on what we're going to do? Do you have an idea of how soon we need to let them know?
The last I left it with them was I thought we could, I thought we would pass the ordinance as we had it drafted tonight. So I said, yeah, we plan to pass it next week and we'll follow up. And I think their response was okay. So I think between rented residential and commercial, there's 60 grand on the table is what we're talking about if we use the original rates.
Is there a consensus on one of the proposals so far, or do we just want to table this until we get to a next meeting and can work on the ordinance between now and then?
I was gonna ask, if we wait till May 1st is our next meeting, the county will just, if we do nothing, they would do nothing. Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
We do nothing, they do nothing. Correct. But we still have to change the rate at some point officially. We officially have to change the rate. Yes. Councilmember Kennedy.
Can you pull out your calculator for me, please?
Sure.
All right, so let's start with rented property. So you said 26,100,000.
Correct.
So basically it's 0.4286 per 100.
Per 100, yep.
So if you do that math and then divide it by 90, you would get basically $1,242.94, correct?
Per
unit.
property. Yep.
Okay, so if you do the same math, but you plug in the 0.4654, that would give you 1349.66, which is a difference of $106 between the difference of 0.0368. So if you multiply that by 90 homes, it's only 9,604.80, which is why I'm still baffled where the 88,000 came from. So
Right,
if it was reversed, then that makes sense, because when you do the math for the residential side at 257 million multiplied by either of those tax rates and then do the division, then the difference between those two is $108 per household. And then multiply that by the 869, that gives you the 93,852. So that's why I said these numbers don't make sense.
Yeah, so this is what we adopted the budget at, 183. If we take our assessed value and work through the formula, we should have started our budget at 103 for rented residential. We started at 183. Same thing for regular owner occupied. We should have started our budget at 1,018,000, but our starting budget was 955. So our original budget could have been tighter between residential and owner occupied. So that's what makes the change look disproportionate to what we're talking about.
Okay. Councilmember Noble.
I think for legislative purposes and for this moment, because tax bills will be going out again soon, if we can agree to maybe the mayor proposed it first, and I agree with that we make those changes on those two, what is it? The rental and the commercial real property. And the non-commercial is going to stay at the 0.4286, and everything else is the same. That we can communicate that to the county and move on, because we're going to be at another place where we're going to vote on another tax rate very soon and communicate that to the county. So, right. So it's not going to affect any homeowners. It's just going to affect the commercial and the rental properties.
Are we ready to vote on that? Let's vote. I move that we amend ordinance number 04-24 under new tax rates as revised, changing commercial real property to 0.5313, changing rented residential real property to 0.4654. Is that correct?
Repeat that, Mayor.
I move that we amend ordinance number 4-24 on page 5 of 7 under new tax rates as revised, striking under commercial real property 0.451 and inserting 5313, and under rented residential real property striking 0.4286 and inserting 0.4654.
A second.
It is moved and seconded that we amend ordinance number 4-24 on page 5 of 7 under new tax rates as revised, striking next to commercial real property 0.0451 and inserting 0.5313, under rented residential real property striking 0.4286 and inserting 0.4654. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Abstain.
One other question, Mr. Frankenfield, if we leave two of the rates the same, if we leave the rate for non-commercial real property the same as this ordinance proposes, which is 0.4286, but we change the commercial real property and the rented residential property rates to what was adopted in the ordinance in July or in June 2023 for FY 2024, we need to make adjustments to the sums in the figures or in the exhibits from the budget that are here. Can you help us get to the numbers with those changes?
Yes. So we are going to, in page 3 of 7, we're going to strike the decrease 51,775 from commercial. And from rented residential, we're going to change a decrease of 88,578 to 78,578. So total change of 61,775. So the new total at the bottom of page 3 is a decrease of 83,225. And page 4 of 7, the amount from public safety will be a decrease of $14,200, so a decrease of 14,200 from public safety. And a total decrease in expenses of 83,225.
I ask a question. Just trying to get clarity.
Council President McDonald.
So, Mr. Frankenfeld, so we're doing 75975. Is that minus 14,200?
No, the revised number is going to be 14,200.
Oh, the
We're gonna
revised
do-
number. Thank you.
Yes.
I got it. So I get it. Okay.
So essentially, we're adding 61,775 back into the budget in revenue and decreasing the change in expense.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to check the number on page 3 again. I got page 4 of 7. I'm good on that. under commercial property, the new number is what? It was 51775.
The new number is 0,
Number is now,
so there's no adjustment.
and then under rented residential, the number is, the new amount is,
Decrease of 78578. So we're going to decrease that amount $10,000.
okay. Yep, okay, I got it. The other thing we need to adjust is we need to have the new total amount on page 3 at the bottom. The new budgeted amount. So right now, total revenues show 8,189,547 on the ordinance. Give us a new number there. I just want to confirm it's going to be 8,189,547.
And we're adding back in 61,775. So new total is 8,251,322.
At the bottom of page 3, the total, all the way down to the bottom. The zero, for the commercial. So it's the first column minus the second. That item with the, that 78,1.
Because the bulk of it is residential, and the residential could be down in the difference between the two. Because it's 867.69 homes, because they rented it. It should be that, and the commercial is this, the difference between what got built and what.
Okay. Mr. Frankenfield, give me the number one more time on page 3 of 7, because I just want to make sure I got it correctly. This is taking commercial to 0, so under new budget amount, that's 0. Or does that remain 4208?
No, it goes, so the new budget amount is 55,983. So strike the 4208 and use the adopted budget amount, 55,983.
You know, I'm just going to say this. I'm really not confident we can calculate and we can capture all the changes accurately. So I think we really need to just table this until next meeting and get a new ordinance with the changes. There's too many adjustments to be made, and we're dealing with numbers and it's a budget. Let's do it right and get a fresh ordinance that reflects both the will of the council and the accurate numbers after they've been adjusted, checked. We'll do that. Let's do that. So going forward, what the council wishes to do is to leave the rate for the commercial and rented residential as it was adopted for FY24 in that budget ordinance, and to change the rate for non-commercial to 0.4286 for non-commercial real property. So the numbers that we get from that we'll put into the ordinance and we'll bring it back to council to vote on first meeting in May.
Mayor, does it
Okay.
make sense?
What was that, Mr.
Um,
Frankenfield?
Can we strike the budget changes from this ordinance and adopt the tax rates so that we have final legislation to provide the county?
Yes. That's, well, no, we're not making a change tonight because in order to rectify the dollar amounts, we need time to do that accurately. I think to where the council has full confidence. So for now, we're not going to strike. We're not going to change it. Thank you. Mr. Best.
Please let me see the ordinance before it comes before you, because there may be some equal protection issues. I want to make sure it's legally sufficient.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into the details in a public session any further than that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Best. Mr. Councilmember Kennedy.
So just remember, everyone. So the higher rate was what was adopted, but for some reason it wasn't sent to county correct. So in essence, you don't want to, so the non-rented, so residential rates, you want it to stay at the lower amount, not what was adopted, because the adopted amount is the higher amount.
Well, I want to have an ordinance that states the correct amounts. And I would love to change the amount to higher, but we have to rectify all the numbers that are in the ordinance. And it's going to be cumbersome on us and on the clerk and everyone reporting the information for it to be accurate. So for those purposes, so we don't have even more of a mess, we should fix the ordinance.
Correct. But what you just stated was leaving it at the adopted amount. We don't want to leave it at the adopted amount. The adopted amount is the higher amount. So for residential, we want to.
Well, for tonight, we
leave
won't
it
be making a change to it. What will we?
Correct. But he needs to know what the will of the body is.
The will of the body is to leave the, well, anyway, we're going to have some discussion about what we're going to do in the ordinance. But, okay, so we're tabling. But this, will the motion pass to, that was an amendment, but we're going to table the resolution at this point, or the ordinance at this point until the next meeting, May. What's the date of the next meeting? We're going to table this until May 6th.
I guess the question is, if we're tabling it and coming back with changes, what changes are we asking him to put into the new ordinance for us to review on the first?
Okay, I'll state this one more time. We are asking the treasurer to adopt the non-commercial rate of 4,286. That's a change based on what the ordinance currently states. We are asking the treasurer to adopt a commercial real property rate that is higher at 0.5313. That is currently on the books. So we don't have to formally change that. However, that has not been collected. We asked for the rented residential rate also to show a higher rate of 0.4654. That is on the current ordinance, but has not been collected as such. And we'll also get some advice, legal advice on implications of that proposal.
Okay.
All right. All right, well, that concludes legislation for this evening. Next, we will have the ballot for council president. My apologies. Next, we'll have public period. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during public period at this time? If you wish to do so, you'll have 2 minutes to provide comment. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak during public period at this time? Hearing none, public period is now closed. Next, we'll have council member and mayor reports, and we'll begin with Ward 1, Council President McDonald.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Currently, we are gathering information for the Sustainable Maryland application for Sustainable Forest Heights. The application process is now open. And we have a couple meetings coming up. One on April 27th, actually two on April 27th. One will be our Green Team meeting. And I would like for Mr. O'Connor to give us an update when that time permits. And then a Finance Committee will meet. So the Green Team meeting will meet from 9 to 10. Finance Committee meeting will meet from 10 to 11. And then the Ways and Means meeting will meet from 11 to 12. I think I got those times right. I think that's all I have. Looking forward to our 75th celebrations. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Next, we'll have Councilmember Little.
Good evening. I just want to remind our residents to lock your car doors. There's been a lot of issues I'm hearing is going on. And also we look forward to seeing you guys at our 75th anniversary celebrations. Woo!
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Next, we'll go to Ward 2, and I'll start with Councilmember Kennedy.
As two members already said, reminder about the 75th anniversary function. But specifically, we are doing a time capsule. I don't know if we've gotten a lot of replies. Obviously, we can't fit something huge in there. But if you have something that you would like to potentially put into the time capsule, you can do that Saturday. That's when the time capsule will be filled with whatever people have brought forward and then also closed. And it will be reopened 25 years from now. So just FYI.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Brownson.
I want to bring up the information that Attorney Best sent about the community garden that another municipality has, and he sent it to all of us, and I'm hoping that we'll look at it and try to maybe adopt that particular process that they use there. I looked it over, it's very good. It's everything is done through resolution where we would appoint a committee to oversee the garden through volunteers or something like that. And because the garden is almost ready to begin, and I don't know whether we have any directions on how we're going to manage it. So we need to think about how it's going to be managed and who's going to be responsible for managing it. So the information that Attorney Best sent out is a good template for us to follow. And I'm hoping that maybe we can work on it in work session at the next meeting. Everybody get an opportunity to look at it. Other than that, that's all I have. The garden is coming along, looking good. I do want to say from a beautification point of view, that the town looks pretty raggedy. As for the town as a whole, raggedy. I mean, to me, the gathering space looks, unkept. Some of the homes that's in the front of our entrance, they look unkept and raggedy. And since we're having the 75th anniversary, I was hoping that, that people would spruce up their property just a little bit, because I know the code enforcement have put some codes out. So I don't know what we can do to get things rolling to look beautiful for the 75th anniversary for the town, especially entrances, because right now it doesn't look good. So help somebody.
Do we want to talk through that now, Chief Reese and Mr. Belnavis, or later? Okay.
So recently, the DPW staff has went around. They started as early as last week. The gathering space is we're starting that tomorrow, actually, specifically for the 75th. Obviously, reasons why the gathering space, obviously, we had a little bit of rain last week, and we did not want to belabor the staff to cut it twice before the 75th anniversary, but it will be cut tomorrow. And as far as the beautification around the town, we have been going out. What we will be proposing is some more street cleaning. They started on Talbot today, and they're gonna work their way around the town throughout the end of the week. And it actually started on this building too. Can't see it tonight, but this building was it got power washed. And notice where the staff parks, where the council, your parking spots are. That wall, we've removed all of the algae and everything from that wall. And so things are they're moving in the right direction. And so I do commend Mr. Dool on putting his team. We're small, but they're still doing it though. But it will be completed by the 75th anniversary events.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. We share your concerns, and so this was something staff and I had talked about, not just for the 75th though, just in general, beautifying areas in town and putting effort into them to show them at their best. That's what we want to do. So thank you for raising the comment. Thank you for Chief for giving the staff the marching orders to do that, and Mr. Belnavis, I know that you know our expectation is high for the areas that the town has control over. On the ones that some residential homes, right, may not look the way we want them to, but we can only enforce up to what the code allows us to enforce. It is very specific about the heights of grass and the areas that have to be maintained to a certain property. So some of the other items come from encouraging neighbors and talking with them and getting them to have the same spirit that we have for Forest Heights. Council member, well, I'll go to Ward 3, Council Member Hines.
Good evening. I would like to talk about, first of all, May 18th is coming around real soon, and that is Kids to Play Day. I cannot stress this enough. We are doing something in the park, Bell Acres Park. Am I saying the park right? Okay. And it's bring your child out, get them out for 60 minutes. We're doing old-fashioned games. We have a double Dutch team coming out. We have all sorts of old school games. So I'm going to hit all the schools, but if you have any ideas, please, the time is 12 to 4. We have moon bounce. We have all of this getting ready to happen. I'm speaking it into existence. Thank you. I would also like to say that the trees that they planted are just blooming. They're starting to bud, and I think that's beautiful. So yes, I love it. Different colors, and so I'm really encouraged. I guess that's about all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Councilmember Noble.
Yes, good evening, all. For this is just an update. The 26th District Dialogue Series on April 27th will be at the Akakeet Library from 2 to 4. And the next one is not until July, so I won't give you too much information at one time. And on tomorrow, there's a vigil, right, Chief? On North Huron. One of our residents was killed. And I think, I don't know, what's the time? 7. They're telling me 7 o'clock at North Huron at Bell Acres Park. Yeah, at the park, 7 o'clock. So that's one of our residents, and we want to support the parent. I don't want to go into. Oh, and what was the other thing? May is National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. So I guess that comes into play with Councilwoman Hines, May 18th. And I also want to thank, I guess, Maryland Park National Park and Planning for the new equipment at Bell Acres. Looks really nice. And they took in consideration the kids. They drew, had drawings of what they wanted. And that's what happens when the community gets involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Noble. Council President.
Yes, I had a question. I don't know who could give me an update on the bridge, that bridge that was supposed to be fixed?
But we don't have an update yet. Last meeting, we got, the status is the same. National Park Services, they've scoped the work out. They have the plan for the bridge. The paving is supposed to happen. It's not done yet. The installation of the bridge was supposed to start at the beginning of this month. Mr. O'Connor, you're shaking your head. You have any more information about it?
No, Mayor, it's still delayed. The same update you have is
Okay.
the same one I have.
Once they start to make more progress, invited the officer or the person who works with the project to come give council and the community an update. So as soon as we have something substantive for them, we'll invite them to a meeting to give an update. If there's any information that comes before that, we'll try to communicate it through email. But the most recent update is that we gave previously is what we have so far. All right, thanks, Councilmember Noble, Council President McDonald. So I'm just going to quickly reiterate that the 75th events are happening this weekend, April 19th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the community gathering space next to Henry Soul Cafe. You'll be able to come put something in the time capsules. Councilmember Kennedy said we'll have the open house here in the town hall on Saturday, April 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. There'll be displays of information about the town's history. You'll also have an opportunity to contribute to the capsule before, at the end of that event, closer to 4 o'clock, we'll bury it in a spot outside in the Memorial Garden. And so please come out from those events. Those are free. On Sunday, April 21st, we have the 75th anniversary gala, which will be at Harborside Hotel. That is a ticketed event, which is officially sold out at this point. So to all the residents who grabbed their tickets and people who supporting the town, thank you for that. That event will be black tie. So if you are attending, wear your nicest. And we have entertainment, and we have 2 hosts actually who are both from Forest Heights who will be hosting the event. There'll be some resident superlatives as well, giveaways and recognition of some residents that are there. So we're looking forward to that. We hope that you'll join us if you bought tickets. If you didn't buy tickets at that event, please join us for the other free events to celebrate the town as we move into celebrating this milestone into the next chapters of the town. On the event front, there is a youth brunch that is happening also on April 27th at Lee Detroit Baptist Church at 11 a.m. This is a youth brunch with Councilmember Burrows and 100 Black men of Prince George's County. This is the second installment of this brunch, and at the brunch, they'll be discussing mentoring opportunities for youth in the community. That's both in Forest Heights and Oxon Hill in the surrounding area, and also leadership training and other opportunities for developing youth and helping them to succeed and to excel academically and professionally. So that's again Saturday, April 27th at Lee Detroit Baptist Church. All youth in the area are invited to attend, and you can register. There's a link that's out there via Eventbrite. We'll try to get it sent out to our constant contact email list. 11 a.m. We talked a lot about budget tonight. The budget has been worked on with staff and with the treasurer, and we'll be presenting the budget soon for council to review so that we can go into May, holding our council hearings and moving forward to adoption on time so we can properly plan and get ready for fiscal year 25. And the other item I think I'll address under new business. All right, so next we'll move into new business. And we will have, at this time, the vote for council president. Each member of the council has a card where you can cast your votes. After that, the clerk will tally it. And I think some people may already have theirs ready. Yes, there we go. Pass them to me. What was that? I have one more for you, Miss Hawkins. What was that?
How many times you gonna look?
Oh,
It should be 18. Ten.
oh my goodness. Give us a brief moment while the clerk tabulates the votes.
For Council President McDonald. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations, Council President McDonald. All right, I move that we ratify the vote for Council President. Oh, sure. So the mayor becomes the acting mayor if the mayor can't serve. Now I'm asking questions like you, Councilmember Brownson. Okay. And that 4 + 2 + 1 = 7. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I move that we ratify the vote for Council President. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we ratify the vote for Council President. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Congratulations, Council President. For a second year. Okay, next we have council committee assignments. As the makeup of the council has not changed, the council assignments are the same. So that is there for you to review and read.
Because I think, just for clarification, I think, Council Brownson and I have been working together with the green team and also trying to utilize, I guess, the residents who have stepped up to want to volunteer for both.
So would you want to add you have residents who actually can serve on one of the subcommittees where we can have residents be on the committee? They're outside of the 4 council committees, so like green team or beautification.
No.
What we.
No. I was saying that so we have a green team we have a green team that has residents who are volunteering. Then we have the beautification. I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we are utilizing the community or persons who want to volunteer in the most efficient way. So we have a green team meeting, but then we go into the beautification as well. So I'm just trying to get clarity on what it is that we're supposed to be doing as far as those two. There's green team with beautification. I guess that's what I need to know.
Well, it could be beautification / green.
We can.
So we
the green team
talk
is not
about that,
officially
right?
recognized under the committees here, but we could add it and we could spell out exactly what it does.
Okay. Thank
So, yeah, if you'd like to get some information to us about what should go there, we can add it and update this for the next meeting. All right. So next we have, just one moment. Ordinance 03-24 is under new business. This is an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights, Maryland, amending and adding Article 26, which is admissions and amusement tax. to the Town of Forest Heights Ordinance Code, thereby creating, defining, and authorizing the levy and collection of a state shared revenue known as the admission and amusements tax for certain entertainment and amusement activities conducted within the town and subject to municipal taxation and generally relating to municipal finance and taxation. This is basically an ordinance for council to consider moving forward with that would give us more options for collecting revenues when admissions and amusement activities happening within the town. This would apply to a area that's already annexed into the town, but also to future annexations. And the reason for this is because we have locations that we would potentially consider annexing that are businesses and they provide amusement and entertainment. Mr. O'Connor, did you have can you provide any other notes or overview or things council should be aware of relating to this ordinance?
Mayor, this just came about from the conversations that Council Member Bronson had in reference to the various taxes and fees that we had. It was several meetings ago. We brought up that we would bring the amusement tax forward when we were looking at the restructure of the residential. But basically, ticket sales, electronic tips, there's a table in the back that council could take a look at to see what some of the other municipalities have, as well as the various items that could be taxed from this. Of course, keeping in mind with National View going up, there's likely to be entertainment, any type of amusement, and in that area as well. So this is in preparation for that. I don't know that it'll be widely applied to it now, but that's a basic summary, Mayor. I think we've talked about it a lot.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Councilmember Bronson.
I thought we included that in another resolution that ordinance that we did earlier, when we were doing yes, and all those other things that was included in that.
So no, the amusement tax is completely separate from, or the admissions and amusement tax is completely separate from the rental permits, the short-term rental permits, and or the residential differential tax rate for those that are renting properties through ESTAT. So this is a separate tax.
I specifically remember Attorney Best saying that when we wrote that ordinance, that if Harbor View wanted to have gambling or entertainment, that would satisfy that taxes. Am I correct? No, I'm not correct. You don't remember that?
It definitely wouldn't. And I this is also applicable to the mayor's point in which he said, as we're progressing forward in very near annexations that look like in the very beginning of FY25 in July, with a particular parcel, I think this is going to be very applicable to the town. So it's an important one to get on the books now. So we're moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Best.
let me just add a couple things. First of all, of the 27 municipalities in the county, I think 22 have admissions amusement tax. So Forest Heights is lagging behind. There's just a few that do not have it. And the admissions amusement tax is a state shared revenue. It's in the same category as police aid. It's the same category as income tax that is collected by the state. And 17% of the income tax, if you live in a municipal corporation, goes back to the municipality. So the comptroller collects this. The duty is on the entertainer or the venue to pay the tax and file the tax return. So there's no burden on the town staff to collect. Yeah, there may be some more work financially in terms of the budget, in terms of what the treasurer does, but the onus of collecting the tax is on the comptroller. The comptroller collects it and remits it to the town. And right now, the county's getting the tax in the corporate limits. When you pass this ordinance, it'll push out their ability to collect this tax in the corporate limits. Just a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Best. All right, next item on new business is the National View Stormwater Community Meeting. Originally scheduled for May 4th at 10 a.m. There's a decision to postpone that meeting. And the reason is the engineers need a little bit more time to bring a full comprehensive presentation. And we understand that we've advertised a lot for the 75th events this month and other events happening. This would be the first Saturday in May. So we want to give ourselves a little bit more time to get the message out, penetration into the community so we can get the maximum turnout for residents. And then also the information that they get will be as helpful as possible. I guess we could entertain dates in the beginning of June. Are there any dates that the council would be amenable to? Let's look at the calendar. So we have in June, maybe we can come up with two options. Yes. We know it won't be Juneteenth on Councilmember Bronson's birthday. Is that correct? Oh, well, June 19th is not a Saturday. Do we want to keep it on a Saturday? If on the Saturdays we have, I would say let's push it towards the end of the month. What do we have on the 29th or the 22nd? 22nd? Okay, well, we won't be there on the 22nd at 10 a.m. We're not going on Saturday. Okay, so let's look at Saturday, the 22nd, 10 a.m. Do we have anything on the master calendar for the 22nd, Chief Reese? Okay, we'll give June 22nd, 10 a.m. as an option. Is there another date we can use as an option so we can give more than one? June 22nd. Would a weekday potentially? So potentially before, okay, potentially before the town meeting. The town meetings will be on June 3rd and June 19th. June 19th. How did that happen? Okay, so we have June 19th before the town meeting, potentially at 7 o'clock. It's gonna be a long night. Okay, so June 22nd, June 19th is the backup date. And it would be June 19th at 7, June 22nd at 10 a.m. Okay. All right, well, with that, there's no new business further. Is there, Council Member Noble has something?
This is a new business, but on Friday is Flintstone Elementary School's Career Day. So maybe we'll get a chief of police there to show up just for a minute. Thank you.
Okay. Correction. It looks like June 19th is actually a holiday for the town. It's Juneteenth. We said that, but then we forgot that. The town meeting would be moved because it's a federal holiday. So is that one of our holidays, Chief Reese? So we'll be having the meeting the next day on June 20th. June 20th at 7 p.m. I just want to check, Mr. Best. If we have a holiday that falls on a town meeting, but it's the second meeting of the month, which is charter mandated, can we move the meeting to the next day, or are we obligated to hold it on June 19th? We can open and close the meeting?
Yeah, that's been done before. You have to have some, there's no exception in the
Right,
charter.
right.
You're gonna have to have at least a 1-minute meeting. And yeah, it's been done like that in the past, just to comply with the law, but not really have a meeting.
There's nothing in the charter about holidays?
Not for the regular meeting on the third Wednesday.
Can we pass an ordinance before?
No, you can't not change this by ordinance.
Is charter
Must be a
amendment
charter and a
resolution?
Resolution.
Okay, so it takes some time, but maybe the fact that we're gonna have to adjust and work around the meeting is a good, do we want to look at changing that? No?
Because it's gonna be another holiday that comes up another year, so. Let's just have a virtual meeting. Well, that's what I said, virtual meeting. I mean, not just in and out, just after the meeting, period. Okay, the meeting, period, yes.
Whatever we decide, the community needs to
Well,
know.
we can have a meeting with nothing on the agenda.
It's gonna be a holiday. I think that we should open and close the meeting and hold the meeting the next day. What's council want to do? Do you want to hold the meeting the same day virtually? Is that how council feels? I'm not, it doesn't matter to me. Just want to figure out where we are.
If it is a holiday that we recognize, who's gonna be here?
We'd have to call the staff in or have them work, even if it's virtually, they'd have to log on or come in to set up. So it'll be overtime. So my recommendation is that we, one person at a time, my recommendation is that we open the meeting and close it on the 19th. It'll be a holiday anyway. We'll hold the meeting the very next day when staff will be on site. We can come in and have the meeting in person. And we don't know what issues will come up between now and then that we need to discuss. Every meeting, urgent matters come up that we need to deal with. And so how does council feel about that in light of the extenuating circumstances around the holiday?
As long as it's posted, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so I
As
moved
long as
it.
it's posted, I'm fine with it.
So that means it goes in the newsletter, it goes online, it goes on social media. I move that we open and close the meeting on June 19th and that we move the regular town meeting and hold it on June 20th, the following day, which is a Thursday. Is there a second? We are gonna open and close virtually. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded that we open and close the meeting on June 19th since it is a federal holiday and staff will not be working. And that we move the meeting and hold it on June 20th, which is the very next day at 8 p.m. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Can we
Is the
table-
motion dead?
Can we table this till probably June?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I withdraw my motion, and with that, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night. The time is now 10:40. Have a good evening.